Ever wondered what makes TV so powerful in Jamaica? Time to find out. Welcome to Global TV Group 358, where television meets innovation. We're not just about shows, we're about shaping society. In Jamaica, TV keeps you informed, connects diverse voices, and supports democracy. Imagine a Jamaica where broadcasters unite, sharing data and collaborating globally. That's us, a unified voice in the TV industry. Did you know TV advertising is still king? It drives website traffic, boosts brand equity, and powers integrated campaigns. Even in an age of digital, TV stands strong, resilient in tough times. Our global TV deck is your treasure trove of insights and data. With charts, graphs, and success stories, it's your guide to impactful TV advertising. Curious to learn more? Visit our website and see how Global TV Group 358 keeps television at the heart of entertainment in Jamaica. Get ready to binge watch the future.
For me again, you can't for me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scandal, we can't buy time. You can't for me again. Can't for me again. You can't for me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't for me again.
What fi gonna eat no money, what fi at you, eat no at you. Covid money, miss you, we eat the yellow correct you. Use the youth, them money, waste and bust a man to statue. Say me like a catch you, but bigger than a figure you. Take the spit of money, God, and say that it's not you. On the head, the man above him, look him, I got up. Too much eat in the kitchen, some fly by like a patu. When singers and DJs and social media's coming at you.
It burn me,
300% raise.
it burn me,
Garbage pile up the day.
it burn me,
Give the teacher them
it
raise.
burn me,
I see corruption
it
face.
burn me,
Mash down the people them house.
it burn me,
Every day appear arms out.
it burn me,
Appear money them a thief.
it burn me.
And them a sell out the beach.
Can't for me again, you can't for me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scandal, we can't buy time. You can't for me again. Can't for me again. You can't for me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't for me again.
Come me say big up all the charities and all of the givers. Some a go like say them powerful, me no make a bigger. The 100 the promises, none of them not deliver. Cut up the youth, them rap and they down in a whatever. Member bowl only and they lie them tell. Corruption smell and they pocket them swell. When police don't a market like Satan out of hell, go mash up people start like people themselves.
It burn me,
Or they treat the market man.
it burn me,
Or them a treat the cat man.
it burn me,
Or they treat the peanut man.
it burn me,
Or them a treat the dirt man.
it burn me,
Or them a treat the soul man.
it burn me,
Or them a treat policeman.
it burn me,
How them a treat soldier man.
it burn me.
How them a treat everyone.
Can't for me again, you can't for me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scandal, we can't buy time. You can't for me again. Can't.
Stibbidim day, stibbidim day. We in Global TV say certain kind of friend we no keep. And some informer friend we love like. We in Global, bona fake friend and bona tape. We in Global, we not promote them, we not support them. Look at them on the cheek, come here represent for. We in Global TV, check it.
Good evening. It is Friday, the 21st of February. Welcome to Global Television Group. It is geopolitical even this evening, as you are more and more becoming aware that on Fridays we touch on geopolitical issues that concerns our country, giving you, the people, an understanding of where Jamaica sits in the geopolitical region. And we're going to look at no other than information from the patriotic Jamaican tonight, because he's doing some good work in relation to the depraved President Trump and his stick waving of tariffs with anyone who dares to cross his path, particularly if you have a relationship with China. To my community of party and all my family members, platform moderators, membership holders, via subscribers, commenters, and trolls, good evening and welcome. How are you all doing this evening? Good evening, TikTok. Good evening, YouTube. Lord, the old item can't see the fine writing over TikTok. You're writing over TikTok fine, bruh. Anyway, let's get on with it. Beat and teach. Good evening, and welcome. Debbie Jervis TV. Good evening. And remember, my peeps, let us all continue to send out our love and our prayers to Sharon Bernard as we understand what she has been going through. Marcia Thomas, good evening. RJ, good evening. RJ Robinson, Empress Deb, Violet Watson, Conjugal 84, Horace Harrison, good evening and welcome. Carlene Jones, good evening. Paulette Lewis, Larkland, good evening. Let me see who is on TikTok. Hold on. Jamaica Politics TV, Abby, good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully my TikTokers will turn up soon, even though this channel is fairly new, but it's taking its little time pushing along. Now, Secretary Rubio, the small hand Canadian, Cuban immigrant, has called Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Now, in the pecking order of things, Jamaica would be all the way down there in U.S. calling countries of interest that really matters to the U.S. Foreign policy relationship, as well as U.S. countering China relationship, particularly in the Western Hemisphere of U.S. backyard. So, you know, Secretary Rubio is quite busy all over the place, visiting and making phone calls. We saw what happened when Secretary Rubio, Liebert, how are you? When Secretary Rubio visited Panama, we saw the rollback of deals and memorandum of understanding, such alike and such a forth. Over the last few hours, Prime Minister Andrew Holness has got a call. We are fully aware that China has a very high influence in Jamaica with the Belt and Road Initiative and others. The US is quite wary of economic relationship China is building around the world, but more so in the US backyard. Even though the US economy depends on China, even though the US owes China so much money. The US would have the whole world believe China is not good for you all, even though I have to borrow money from China to pop up myself and look like the big boy on the street who's shifting this and that. The US still wants to strangle other countries' relationship with China. So we are going to go into the information, some information from the patriotic Jamaican in the whole US aid, Brics, Jamaica, China conundrum. And then we'll come back on the other side after we listen to this section of the information, then this more linked to the cutting off of aid and the forward movement of Brics. Let's get into this segment of it, and then we look at certain issues that he raised on the other side. And don't forget to subscribe to his channel. He's doing quite some good work. The channel is Patriotic Jamaican.
Is this foreign aid or foreign agenda? Buckle up, because this is a wild ride through international politics, controversy, and Elon Musk roasting government spending. Stay tuned. What did Trump do? Why was US aid under attack? Stick around to find out. Hey, patriotic internet friends and family, welcome back to the channel. In this video, should the US be funding LGBT advocacy through USAID aid donations in Jamaica? This is not the first money I get donated towards the whole alphabet agenda in Jamaica. Who remember in 2022 when Canada donated 9.8 million Canadian dollars, which would have been equivalent to around maybe 1.2 billion Jamaican dollars, to push said reproductive rights, i.e. abortion rights, and LGBT rights in Jamaica. Yes. And we saw Olivia Babsy Grange and Juliette Cuthburn Flynn, you see me, when that money was handed over to Jamaica to push that said initiative. So none of this, no new, even though Trump take over and I say, all right, look, the adults are in charge, picking them now run America again. No more wasting a US tax dollars money to go towards this garbage of pushing no LGBT agenda, because we're not supposed to use US taxpayers money to do that. So Trump cut that the card, but Canada is still there. We can only hope now, say, a serious government takeover. I mean, me attack Trudeau them opposition, win the next election and get out Trudeau party, because a Trudeau them they donate the 9.8 million Canadian to Jamaica. So make we go back in our time capsule now, where in 2007 when Andrew Holness was the education minister, the teacher them bust out a story that there was this alleged textbook that was to be introduced in the schools. And in that said textbooks, you had chapters on same-sex relationship, same-sex marriage, same-sex couple raising children as a family. And the teachers them say, no, we not teach our children that. The church come out and start burn a fire as well. So Andrew Holness at the time, as the education minister in 2007, come out angrily, very vexed now, you know, and say, no go so. So you can see, say, as far back as 07, the Labour Party, JLP, has always been entangled up in and amongst this whole LGBT agenda where them a try push on the youths, because of the youths them a target. And we as adults, because they know say we don't want nothing to do with that. So the health and family life education curriculum for schools was ordered to be revised in 2012 because that curriculum appeared to be normalizing the homosexual relationship. And in 2014, several children's homes across Kingston and St. Andrew was introduced to a sexual education course within 6 children's homes by human rights group Jamaicans for Justice, JFJ. So apparently, I don't know what going on with JFJ. I don't know if they get hijacked by gay rights promoters or whatever. But JFJ apparently set its sights on Jamaica's most vulnerable children in these said children's home who are wards of the state. So the targeted group for that specific project targeted approximately 120 children ages 12 to 17 at the National Children's Home, St. John's Bosco Boys Home, Elsie Bernard Girls Home, Sunbeam Home for Boys, and Alpha Boys Home. So they were at these private children's home. I teach them everything LGBT and teaching the children to be experts and peer educators. I want to say peer educators, you know. Them I teach these wards of the state at the children's home to be gay rights lobbyists, LGBT lobbyists. So guess what? Now, when them the picnic they go primary school or high.
My peeps, I'm going to break this video. I just realized we did this one last week. This is not the one we should be doing this week. Just bear with me. I want the one relating to Brics. Bear with me, please. We looked at that one last week. Bear with me, bear with me. Yes, this is the one. That's the one. This is the one I want to look at tonight and another one after, but hold on. Last week we looked at that. This is the one, yes. Sorry about that. This is the one I really want to look at tonight.
Before I get to that question, actually, what will Brics here do for the Jamaican economy? Will it do much?
It can. It can. The opportunity to network, the opportunity to raise issues, this platform of industrialized countries, but countries.
Jamaica is at a crossroads. With the rise of Brics, an economic alliance of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, some wonder if Jamaica should align itself with this powerful bloc. But is joining Brics really in Jamaica's best interest? In this video, we break down 15 critical reasons why Jamaica should never join Brics. From trade imbalances to security risks and diplomatic consequences, we'll explore how joining Brics could impact Jamaica's economy, international relations, and future stability. Stick around to find out why staying aligned with traditional Western partners may be the smarter choice. Number 15, human rights and global reputation.
If you want to make a full-time income from home working part-time, you need to know this one concept, because there is a new and better way to make money in UK real estate without ever buying houses and being a landlord. You never get any loans. You don't need to buy, fix up and renovate homes like you see on TV shows like Homes Under the Hammer.
Western.
It's so like me, I got confused. Did I not look at this one last week as well? I'm sure I looked at that one last week. I'm going confused. Okay, let me go to a fresher one. Sorry about that, my peeps. Sorry for confusing you all.
China is quietly buying up Jamaica and the Caribbean, ports, roads, even 5-star resorts. But is this investment or a takeover? And what does Donald Trump have to say about all of this? Buckle up, because this is a geopolitical showdown you don't want to miss. Hey, patriotic internet friends and family, welcome back to the channel. In this video, a lot of people been speculating, say China own Jamaica and the Caribbean. And
sorry about the confusion, my people. I think I got it right now.
take it over from America. So in this video, we are going to put all of that to rest. We have all of the facts, all of the receipts, and basically I have all of the tea for exposing this breakdown and deep dive. So watch the video till the end. First off, we are going to establish China's growing presence in the Caribbean through billions in investments and soft loans. China has steadily expanded its economic and strategic presence in the Caribbean by investing billions of dollars through a mix of direct investments and soft loans. Since 2005, at least $7 billion has been funneled into major infrastructure projects, including ports, roads, bridges, airports, and luxury resorts. Though the actual figure is believed to be in the tens of billions, unlike Western lenders, China's financing often comes with fewer political strings attached, making it attractive to cash-strapped island nations. However, many of these soft loans come with conditions that require Chinese contractors, laborers, and materials, allowing Beijing to gain long-term economic leverage over these countries. Key strategic assets such as Jamaica's Kingston Free Port, the Bahamas' Bahamar Casino, and major tourism developments in Barbados are now under Chinese influence, reinforcing Beijing's grip on the region's trade, commerce, and infrastructure, while sidelining traditional Western partners. As it relates to these so-called traditional Western partners, the relationship where the West have with former slave colonies and Africa is that of a slave master and slave relationship. So Western nations still practice neocolonialism, still are going with economic colonization. So that has always been the relationship between the Western powers such as England, Canada, and America with the Caribbean and Africa. But China take a different approach. You see, China come to us as a business partner with a deal that is mutually beneficial both to Jamaica and to China. And these Western powers not like that because China equal Brics. You get it? And that's how the West hate about China. So in every way, shape, or form, them a fight and demonize and tell lies and propaganda on China. These loans we get from IMF and World Bank and private Western lenders, it is one-sided. It is only meant to benefit the West. Jamaica has never benefited from no IMF or World Bank loan, never. Now, let me explain the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, and how China is strategically securing influence. The Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, is China's global infrastructure economic development strategy aimed at expanding trade routes and strengthening its geopolitical influence. Launched in 2013 by President Xi Jinping, the BRI seeks to connect Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas through massive investments in roads, railways, ports, and energy projects. By offering low-interest loans and soft financing to developing nations, China secures long-term economic leverage, often requiring recipient countries to use Chinese contractors, labor, and materials. This strategy allows Beijing to establish deep economic dependencies, gain access to natural resources, and control critical trade infrastructure, effectively expanding its sphere of influence while challenging Western dominance in global finance and diplomacy. Critics argue this approach leads to debt diplomacy, where struggling nations risk ceding strategic assets to China if they fail to repay their loans.
Good night, Sharon. Good night. I hope you're keeping up. I hope you're keeping up. We're still sending you positive vibes and always focus on the good memory. Welcome.
Let me explain and define what is debt trap diplomacy or predatory lending. The debt trap narrative, also commonly referred to as predatory lending, states that China uses excessive lending to developing countries, knowing full well these countries will not have the means to repay these loans. In turn, these countries, many of them very poor, will then be forced to default on the loans and hand over key strategic assets to China, or be forced to otherwise compromise their sovereignty to satisfy Beijing. Johns Hopkins University.
This bit makes you wonder where our country is going. Surrender your sovereignty or hand over your asset. We see the Kingston Harbor situation, as well as we see the developing ongoing situation of the Marcus Garvey land. We see the benefits from the highway. It is quite a relationship where our leaders need to be more honest with us about the type of relationship, Christine Gilbert, Yvonne, how are you? That we're having, Yvonne Riley, Yvonne Bradford, with China, because we don't want to be recolonized again, even though we're on the verge, one could argue. We don't want to be recolonized again without even a clue of where we're going. So I think it's important that we have this conversation with our leaders as to what the relationship is and how it does affect us.
Professor and director of the China Africa Research Initiative in Washington, D.C., Deborah Brattigam, says no evidence of Chinese debt traps in Africa. China's critics of the Belt and Road Initiative, who accuses China of pursuing this said debt trap diplomacy, these critics are largely led by the United States, who are determined to warn developing countries about the risk of borrowing too much money from Beijing by saying things like, no borrow no money from China, they more use their loan to financially entrap.
I bought this Sharp latest model LiDAR robotic vacuum cleaner because I don't like cleaning.
Economically vulnerable countries as a part of a broader effort to exert political influence and control. Those are the lies and propaganda where America and the West are push. So me just debunk the narrative we're out there, which is China own Jamaica, or China own the Caribbean, China practice predatory lending. So in this video, I present the argument, which is the current narrative, and then me debunk it with the counter arguments. You get me? There is no evidence anywhere in the world to suggest that China is practicing or involved in debt trap diplomacy with any country where they lend money to. It's a lie. Don't listen to mainstream media. China is not the enemy or as evil as where the West I try paint them as. Based off of my research and all the information where me read through and go through so far. Now, we could address and mention some major infrastructure projects, such as Kingston Freeport, Bahamas Casino, Barbados tourism sector. China has strategically invested in major infrastructure projects across the Caribbean, securing economic influence through ports, tourism, and real estate. In Jamaica, China Merchants Port took full control of Kingston Freeport. That's a lie, but make we continue. The island's largest container port in April 2023, strengthening Beijing's grip on regional trade and logistics. In the Bahamas, China financed and built the Bahamar Casino and Resort, a $4.2 billion luxury project that became the region's largest casino, symbolizing China's dominance in the Caribbean's hospitality sector. Meanwhile, in in Barbados, China has poured at least 490 million into the tourism sector, funding hotel and resort developments while establishing beneficial tax and trade agreements to attract.
Refresh your system, Ivan Bradford, because nobody else is telling me anything of the audio. Everybody else seems to be hearing well.
More Chinese investors. These projects not only boost China's economic presence, but also give it long-term leverage over key industries and strategic locations in the Caribbean. Now back to the Kingston Freeport. Now let me debunk China owning the Kingston Freeport. China Merchants Port only own 49% of the Kingston Freeport. The other 51% is owned by and retained by CMA CGM, a French company. So this is how the media spread lies and tell propaganda. So if you don't know the information, you the listener, you the average reader, without doing your own independent research, will be fed lies and be led astray. Cool? So me don't know what's the big deal with China having part of the port. When the French did own and control the port, nobody never did a talk about it. Nobody did even know, say, the French people from France did a control and own the port. So you see how Western propaganda go? When the West not like you and them a demonize you, now we are going to introduce some drama. China's power moves versus Western powers, including Trump's policies trying to counter China's influence. The battle for influence in the Caribbean has escalated into a geopolitical tug-of-war between China and Western powers, particularly the US under Donald Trump, while China has aggressively expanded its presence by investing billions in infrastructure, ports, and tourism. The US has viewed this as a direct challenge to its historic dominance in the region. Trump's administration responded with aggressive countermeasures, warning Caribbean nations about China's debt trap diplomacy and urging them to reject Beijing's loans. Trump even hosted Caribbean leaders at Mar-a-Lago, promising economic aid and investment alternatives to counter China's growing influence. However, China's strategy of offering easy financing with fewer political conditions has made it an attractive partner for cash-strapped island nations. Despite Western warnings, this brewing conflict highlights a new Cold War-like struggle, where Caribbean nations find themselves caught between Chinese economic incentives and U.S. political pressure, forced to navigate a delicate balancing act between the two global superpowers. You see, U.S. would have come like so neglectful man where not treat them woman at their yard good, I ignore them woman, not carry her upon dates like when you used to treat her, not buy her no gifts, Valentine's Day just come and gone and ignore her, I focus on other things around, and then she meet a new man. Jamaica meet China, and China come and a do what US never did a do and should have been doing. So as comes America basically lose the Caribbean to China. When we see the big scandal we bust out about USAID and the billions on top of billions of dollars where they squander and waste on pushing aquatic creature agendas, when it make no sense, all because them a try push a global depopulation agenda, because guess what? Man to man and woman to woman can't produce no offspring. You get what I say? So meanwhile, America focus on crap like them there, nonsense like them there. China come in and just take over. I am all for China. I am all for Brics. But here's where things get messy, because these investments come with strings attached, and and some Caribbean nations are starting to feel the squeeze. At this rate, don't be surprised if the next dancehall hit is sponsored by Beijing. And you know how Western propaganda go already. Oh, China come with death trap diplomacy. And you know the West, not like in Brics or no nation with the inner Brics. Because Brics is too powerful. Them a demonize China and a spread lies and propaganda and attack. But death trap diplomacy, some experts warn China's loans are a way to control small economies. That I lie on the propaganda with them a spread from China. So now the veil has been lifted and we realize that is what the IMF and World Bank and countries like America, that's their strategy where them use all along to control small and developing nations like Jamaica. So because them know say that them a do and have been doing, them a try put their strategy onto China for trick and confuse if you say, oh, yes, see it, what them a say makes sense. Death trap diplomacy, economic colonization, it makes sense with truth. You see me? But in reality, that is what they are doing and what they have been doing to us.
Feeling my husband at 8 inches after this honey hack was like the first time. I was soaked like a waterfall.
A style way and I put it on China. Not no go so. Trump versus China. When Trump was in power in his first term, his administration warned Caribbean nations against China's influence. And now in second term now, and not change because China influence even grows stronger under the Biden-Harris administration. As we can see, the Biden-Harris administration USAID for fund LGBT advocacy in Jamaica. Then give no money for build no roads, build no school, build no hospital. Then give nothing for uplift we. China's loans are for uplift Caribbean islands. Based off of when me I see with my own two eyes. And when me I read and research for myself. America and the West will not give you no money for make you develop and grow. None at all. Them a hold you down.
That is true when it comes to the IMF and the World Bank, as opposed to China's style of development where you actually see it with your eyes. When it comes to Western development, you often hear that it is going to happen, but it's never been actualized because the World Bank and the IMF is what you really call a debt trap. This is how they hold their colonies at bay. So there's loads of propaganda warfare. So that's why it's important for us to listen to information.
That's why you see them demonize China and I go so hard to spread lies and propaganda upon China because China are uplift and I build we up so we can be independent. You see me, and America and Europe, England and Canada, them no want that. The former colonizers don't want that. That's why yesterday they go so hard with their smear campaign to tell lies from China. Them even go as far as to say Barbados cutting ties with the Queen. UK politicians suggest China's influence pushed Barbados to drop the monarchy. Those are the lies where the West tell. You see me, so this politician in England, some Tom Tungen Hat, chairman of the UK's Foreign Affairs Committee, accused Beijing of playing a large role in Barbados's recent call to drop the Queen as the head of state. Things like them that them put out in the media, in a mainstream media outlet, mainstream newspaper, lies and propaganda. Them say Western companies pushed out, Chinese firms dominate projects while British and American companies struggle to compete. Yeah, because China is a better option. You see, China come to the Caribbean.
You see, this is one of the hypocrisy of Western media. They'll never tell you the stronghold that China have in their even very own Western country. Most of these new property development that are going on in the United Kingdom, the Chinese are them lot from Dubai own it. The Americans owe their life to the Chinese in debt. But they would make you think that is only their former colonies or so-called third world, quote-unquote, developing country. that really have to depend on China, but it's really not true. The US economy cannot really do without China at the moment.
And to Africa as a partner. That are the difference between China and the West. When the West are deal with Caribbean former slave colonies, Africa, them a deal with you like, I am in charge and you're the slave. You do what me say. Simple as that. You do what me say. I mean, I do nothing for you and you have to do what me say. So there's no partnership between Jamaica and America. There's no partnership between Africa and America, Africa and England, Africa and Europe. No. Then talk down to we and dictate terms to it. Picture this for example. When these people, like for example, America called big meeting with the Caribbean leaders, Trump called big meeting with the Caribbean leaders, it's basically if it tell you what you have to do, you get what me I say? And talk down to you and, dictate terms. And at the same time, then promise say them out do this, promise say them out do that. But they not do it. And some locals in Jamaica and within the Caribbean will say Chinese construction firms bring their own workers, taking jobs away from locals. Me, not see nothing wrong with that. Honestly, I don't see nothing wrong with that. On the flip side, during the roadwork construction, me see whole heap of local.
That's why we want to know, because I wish I was a fly on the wall, both end of the telephone call. Because it's important to know the orders that Marco Rubio gave to Andrew Holness and how that order will impact us as a people. It is really important that we press the Prime Minister to find out what was the conversation about.
Locals at work would like maybe one Chinese or supervise the project. You see me? So you cannot blame a nation like China who practices nationalism. Jamaica need to start practice nationalism. That's why China so powerful. They believe in themselves and they build themselves. China them a come from nothing, A lot of you don't know the history of China, China is coming from a third world status. So make that sink in for a second. China was a poor, struggling, developing country. China's rise from a poor developing country to a major economic power in about 4 decades. So we are talking about a 40-year time span is very impressive and spectacular. And how did this happen? Through some serious economic reforms. You see, China maintained policies that kept them economically very poor, stagnant, centrally controlled, vastly inefficient, and relatively isolated from the global economy. And all of this happened in 1979. That's why I want to hear me so big on patriotism and nationalism, because that are the key to Africa and the African diaspora becoming a dominant global.
And this is this is Jamaica's biggest problem. We're not patriotic to Jamaica. This is why I'm so disgusted when it comes to tribal politics. Because what that does, that erases, if you're over tribal, it erases the fact that a country exists. Only your political party exists. And I think we need to become more patriotic and nationalized, where everything is about our country. And not just about our country by mouth talk, but everything we do is to advance and develop our country. And I think we're really lacking in the patriotism and the nationalism when it comes to do with our country. Because people afraid to be branded by the US, oh, you're a radical, oh, you're a this, oh, you're a that. Because this is what the US used to keep you in control. You must march the slow death of democracy, as if it's the be-all and end-all, which the US and Britain, or the US and Europe, has never respected democracy, but they march you along that slow death of democracy.
superpower. So is China just helping the Caribbean, or is this a slow motion takeover? And what happens when the debt comes due? So make we address the future outlook. China is building much needed infrastructure, offering opportunities Caribbean nations wouldn't get otherwise. The debate over China's growing influence in the Caribbean is sharply divided. Supporters are
You see, Europe and America's problem. You cannot cry over spilled milk. We have a 500 years relationship with Europe and America. The infrastructure development we see under the relation during the relationship with China, we have never seen it under a development relationship with Europe and America post-colonialism, quote unquote. So they missed that grand opportunity to allow their colonies to develop, assist their colonies to develop. What they rather do is strangle them and hold them into servitude because they must provide your nurses, your doctors, and your service provided workers from care to the tourist and entertainment industry and all the others you can think of. So the US and America, the US and Europe is really crying over spilt milk. They have their opportunity and they've made a mess of it.
Argue that China is providing essential infrastructure and economic opportunities that Caribbean nations wouldn't otherwise have access to, helping to modernize roads, ports, airports, and tourism hubs without the harsh conditions imposed by Western lenders like IMF, World Bank. They see China as a pragmatic partner offering much needed development. The opposing argument to that now, as a counter argument, is China is using debt diplomacy to gain long-term control over key assets. On the flip side, some critics warn that China's strategy is a form of debt trap diplomacy, where seemingly generous loans comes with hidden strings attached, forcing nations to rely on Chinese labor and companies. While accumulating debts they may struggle to repay. Over time, this could lead to Beijing gaining control over key assets, such as Jamaica Kingston Freeport, giving China significant economic and political leverage in the region. No, that lie and propaganda has been debunked about the Kingston Freeport. A key thing to note is you hear America put out the narrative.
The average team spends 50% of their time doing work about work. That's a lot of dollars.
Of the debt trap diplomacy. You see, they are the ones who actually invented terms like that. They are the ones, along with multilateral agencies like the IMF and the World Bank, who engages in and practices these said predatory lending and debt trap diplomacy. That's why them I use the term. You see me? And I try brand China with that lie and propaganda. One thing you need to learn about America and the West, you see, anything where them accuse one next country of doing, they are the ones who are actually practicing and doing it. Don't fall for the lies and the propaganda where them try spread and put on China. What's next? Is the Caribbean trading one colonial power, i.e. the West, for another, China? Predictions. Will the US push back harder? Will Caribbean nations resist Chinese influence? Here's a summary of the highlights and the key points. Now, make a recap. China has invested billions in Jamaica and the Caribbean through loans and infrastructure projects. Some believe this is a soft power move to gain political and economic control. China's presence is squeezing out Western companies and sometimes local workers. The US and the UK are increasingly worried, with some blaming China for influencing Barbados breaking from the monarchy. The debate: is this economic development or a debt trap? And if you want to see how Trump responds to China's global influence in the Caribbean and Jamaica, click here to watch the next video. Make sure to like, share, and comment with your thoughts. Do you think China is helping or just trapping these countries in debt? Let's discuss in the comments.
My peeps, remember to subscribe to his channel, Patriotic Jamaican. He's doing a lot of good work over there. When another independent journalist does good work, you must support them. So make sure.
And big giant aquarium. That's why I'm glad the Democrats.
Hold on. This is another interesting piece of information as well. Let's tap into it, but make sure you subscribe to his channel. His information is good information.
Trump draws the anti-China line in Jamaica. The real story. Imagine this: Donald Trump sipping a Diet Coke at Mar-a-Lago summons a handful of Caribbean leaders, including Jamaica's Prime Minister, for a little friendly chat, or maybe not so friendly. The topic: China, more specifically China's so-called predatory economic practices in the Caribbean. But here's the kicker: Jamaica is at the heart of this geopolitical tug-of-war. So what's really going on here? Let's break it down. Hey, patriotic internet friends and family, welcome back to the channel. In this video, the battle lines are drawn. The Trump administration isn't exactly a fan of China's growing influence in Latin America and the Caribbean. For decades, the US has viewed the region as its backyard. But here's the problem: China has been making some major moves, investing in infrastructure, pouring billions into trade, and even funding key projects in Jamaica, from roads to seaports, bridges to stadiums. China's fingerprints are everywhere. Trump's response: he invites leaders from Jamaica, the Bahamas, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and St. Lucia to his Florida resort to discuss the issue. Translation: the US wants Jamaica to pick a side, Team America or Team China. In other words, kick out China, cut off China, get rid of China. And let's be real, Trump isn't exactly known for his diplomatic finesse. But why is Jamaica so important in this power struggle? And how did we even get here? Stay with me. Trump versus Jamaica-China ties. For nearly 5 decades, Jamaica and China have had a solid relationship, starting from diplomatic ties in 1972. Over the years, China became one of Jamaica's biggest economic partners, funding major infrastructure projects and opening new trade routes. Every Jamaican Prime Minister, from Michael Manley to Andrew Holness, has made official visits to China. Meanwhile, Jamaica's meetings with US presidents not as frequent. Now here's where it gets messy. I will not talk the baller. The Trump administration calls China's influence predatory, arguing that their loans and investments traps countries in a debt crisis. But let's flip the script. Jamaica, with its struggling economy and infrastructure needs, sees China as a reliable partner. It's a classic case of who needs who more. Basically, Jamaica need China more than how we need America. The dramatic conflict. US officials are literally driving on Chinese-built roads, paying tolls to Chinese companies, and attending meetings in Chinese-constructed government buildings. Irony much? China is outpacing the US in education, trade, and infrastructure investments in Jamaica. Trump's government accuses China of economic colonization, while Jamaica insists it's just business. China is not economically colonizing Jamaica. They are lying. Just stay tuned and keep watching the video till the end. I have all the facts, I have all the receipts, I have the tea. So keep watching. China is the best thing what could have ever happened to Jamaica at this point. The Trump administration ramps up pressure, sending officials like former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to warn Jamaica about China's intentions. The question is, will Jamaica cave to US pressure or stick to its long-standing China ties? Is Jamaica about to become ground zero for Trump's anti-China campaign? And can the island nation afford to resist the fallout and future moves? So what did Jamaica do? Let's just say the response has been complicated. While the government appears to be leaning towards the US in public statements, behind the scenes, China's influence remains strong. Loans and infrastructure projects don't just disappear overnight. Former Jamaican governments managed to maintain good relations with both superpowers. But the Trump administration's America First policy isn't leaving much room for middle ground. And we equally have a Jamaica First policy where we are say China and we are say Brics. The pressure is on for PM Holness or any other future Jamaican Prime Minister. Does he prioritize diplomatic relations with the US? Or does he continue to embrace China's investments for Jamaica's economic growth? One thing is clear, Jamaica isn't about to cut ties with China anytime soon. But how it balances this geopolitical tightrope will determine the island's future. Here's a summary of the highlights and the key points. The US views China's growing influence in the Caribbean as a national security threat. Trump invites Caribbean leaders, including Jamaica, to discuss countering China. China has heavily invested in Jamaica's infrastructure, trade, and education. The Trump administration accuses China of economic predation, while Jamaica insists it's just business. Jamaica is caught in a geopolitical tug-of-war, with pressure mounting from both sides. The future of Jamaica's US-China relations remains uncertain, but China's economic grip isn't loosening anytime soon. The Trump administration frequently criticized China's global economic strategy, particularly through initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. The US government under President Donald Trump labeled China's influence as predatory, arguing that Beijing's financial and investment practices were designed to entrap developing nations in a cycle of dependency. 1. The concept of predatory influence. The term predatory influence suggests that China's economic engagements, particularly in infrastructure financing, are exploitative rather than mutually beneficial. The Trump administration and its officials, including former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, accused China of using deceptive economic strategies to gain leverage over countries, particularly in Asia, Africa, Africa and Latin America. 2. Debt trap diplomacy allegations. The Trump administration argued that China deliberately lent large sums of money to developing nations that could not afford to repay the loans. The claim was that China structured these loans in a way that once repayment became difficult, Beijing could seize strategic assets or exert significant political influence over the indebted countries. Keynote and pay attention to all of that. Because further down in the video, I'm going to prove to you and show you say a lie Trump them a tell upon China. That's why you see them use words like accused and allegations.
My friends laughed at me for buying this, and now they ask me where I got this. It's the Japanese chef's knife.
I have all of the receipts, so stay tuned. Example, the case of Sri Lanka is often cited as evidence of debt trap diplomacy. When Sri Lanka struggled to repay back Chinese loans used to build the Hambantota port, it was forced to lease the port to a Chinese company for 99 years. Giving Beijing strategic control over an important marine route. 3. The Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, and its risk. The BRI, launched in 2013, is a massive global infrastructure project aimed at connecting Asia, Africa, and Europe through a network of roads, railways, ports, and energy projects. While China promotes the initiative as a win-win for global development, critics, including the Trump administration, argue that it primarily serves China's interests by expanding its economic and political reach. The loans provided under the BRI often have opaque terms, high interest rates, and limited transparency, raising concerns about the economic sovereignty of recipient nations. 4. The U.S. response under Trump. In response to China's growing economic footprint, the Trump administration took several countermeasures. Blocking Chinese investments in the U.S., the administration tightened restrictions on Chinese firms acquiring U.S. technology and critical infrastructure. Promoting alternatives. The U.S. encouraged alliances like the Blue Dot Network with Japan and Australia to offer alternative infrastructure financing options. Criticizing multilateral institutions. Trump's team urged international organizations like the IMF and World Bank to be wary of China's lending practices and the risk they pose to global financial stability. 5. Counter-arguments and China's defense. China rejected these accusations, arguing that the loans are voluntary agreements between sovereign nations. The BRI has helped develop infrastructure in regions that Western investors have neglected. The U.S. criticisms were politically motivated, aimed at undermining China's rise as a global economic power. Conclusion: the Trump administration framed China's economic influence as a strategic threat, warning that its financial tactics were a modern form of economic imperialism. While the debate over debt trap diplomacy continues, the discussion reflects broader geopolitical tensions between the U.S. and China over global influence, trade, and economic supremacy. I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that, President Trump. If we're being honest, the IMF and the World Bank are the multilateral companies which engage in economic imperialism or economic colonization through their loans and their strict austerity measures. So make we keep it real. Let's keep it 100. That's why economies were sign up to IMF and World Bank loan, they never prosper, they never develop, then just stuck in our debt trap diplomacy. Those are the practices of the IMF and the World Bank. And we are going to go in an even deeper dive, the specific examples and counter-arguments on China's predatory influence. While the Trump administration accused China of using debt trap diplomacy to extend its geopolitical influence, the reality is more complex. Here are specific examples of alleged debt trap diplomacy and counter-arguments that challenge or reframe the narrative. Key examples of alleged debt trap diplomacy: Sri Lanka Hambantota Port 2017. The claim: the Sri Lankan government borrowed heavily from China to build the 1.3 billion Hambantota port despite concerns about its commercial viability. Unable to repay the debt, Sri Lanka leased the port to China Merchants Port Holdings for 99 years in 2017. This was seen as China using debt to gain control over a strategically located port along vital Indian Ocean trade routes. The counter-argument: Sri Lanka's total external debt was around 83 billion and only 10% of it was owed to China, suggesting that China was not the primary driver of the crisis. Much of Sri Lanka's financial struggles stemmed from Western-issued sovereign bonds and mismanagement by its own government rather than Chinese lending. The decision to lease the port was made by Sri Lanka itself, not dictated by Beijing. 2. Pakistan. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC. The claim: China loaned 62 billion to Pakistan as a part of the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, funding highways, railways, and power plants. Many of these projects came with high interest loans, increasing Pakistan's debt burden. Pakistan was forced to seek a 6 billion IMF bailout in 2019, with concerns that China would demand strategic concessions in return for debt relief. Counter-argument: Pakistan's total external debt is over 125 billion and only about 30% is from China. The rest come from institutions like the IMF, World Bank, and Western lenders. China has rescheduled and restructured loans for Pakistan multiple times, showing flexibility rather than predatory intent. Many CPEC projects have helped improve energy production and infrastructure, benefiting Pakistan's long-term development. So how Trump and the US government paint or frame China as this economic predator, when in truth and in reality, if you peel behind the layers, you will see countries like Jamaica also indebted to the IMF and the World Bank. So not just China alone lend Jamaica money. And in the case of even Sri Lanka, you can see the 83 billion where Sri Lanka owe, only 10% of that 83 billion belongs to China. So still, on a China fault, why Sri Lanka economy end up collapse. So there is always more to the story. So these are just the examples and counter arguments. So this is a real deep dive. 3. Djibouti strategic military access. The claim: Djibouti, a small but strategically located country in East Africa, took massive loans from China for infrastructure development, raising its debt to GDP ratio to over 70%. In 2017, China established its first overseas military base in Djibouti, fueling concerns that economic pressure was used to secure a strategic foothold. The US warned that Djibouti might be forced to hand over control over its port to China if it failed to repay debts. Counter-argument. Djibouti actively sought Chinese investment because Western countries were unwilling to finance its infrastructure projects. China's loans have helped Djibouti modernize its ports, railways, and roads, improving trade capacity. Djibouti government denies that it was forced into hosting a Chinese military base, arguing that it made an independent strategic choice. Counter-arguments against the debt trap diplomacy narrative. 1. Most countries owe more to Western lenders than to China. A study by Johns Hopkins University found that many countries accused of being in a Chinese debt trap actually owed more debt to Western-backed institutions, IMF, World Bank, Paris Club, and private lenders, than to China. So you see, the West, specifically China's biggest Western adversary, America, has spread propaganda and lies on China. If you know anything about America, America is a mass manipulating propaganda machine. Example, in Africa, only 17% of total external debt is owed to China, while 35% is owed to private Western banks and 32% to multilateral institutions. Keynote and pay attention to that. Pull it back up and listen it again. Critics argue that China is being unfairly singled out while Western financial institutions engage in their own forms of high interest lending and economic coercion. Facts, 100% accurate. You see, America and the IMF and the World Bank is very guilty of heavily putting pressure on countries like Jamaica, exerting extreme political influence on countries like Jamaica. So whatever the West is accusing China of, that is what America is doing. Behind the scenes, countries like America are the real bandit and culprit in the situation. But guess what? It's called misdirection. So anything what them accuse China of, them are the ones who are actually guilty of it. So I just smoke and mirrors when you hear America or Trump say, oh, China this, oh, China that. 2. China frequently restructures or cancels debt. Unlike the IMF and World Bank, which often demand austerity measures in exchange for loan restructuring, China has taken a different approach. Between 2000 and 2019, China canceled at least 3.4 billion in African debt. Look at that. Look on that. IMF or World Bank nor America never do that for no African country. Them never write off no debt or have no debt forgiveness policy towards Jamaica. So why me fi hate China? Because Trump or America say so? Because England and Canada say so? China could never be my enemy or Jamaica enemy. China never enslave Africans. So no Western mainstream media outlet can make me hate somebody whenever do me or my people nothing. China has also rescheduled loans for Ethiopia, Angola, and Zimbabwe without requiring them to implement harsh economic policies. Keynote and pay attention to all of that. Everything what me just read. Example, in 2018, China waived 78 million in debt owed by Cameroon to ease financial pressure. That's why you can't listen to Western media, you know. You can't listen to Western mainstream media. Can't listen to Trump and America. Remember, so when you say China, you say Brics, you know. So Trump and America and the West now have no choice but to demonize China. Because if you demonize China, you demonize Brics. And we know say Brics is the best thing where ever happened to the world. See, Cuba join Brics, you know. Cuba join Brics. Because we know a long time America have a trade embargo and some serious economic sanctions from Cuba for ever since. Remember, say Fidel Castro and Russia has always been allies. from the days of the Soviet Union. So we are talking about as far back as 1959. That's how far Russia and Cuba are come from. And when you say Russia, you say Brics. So it was a natural progression for Cuba end up join Brics. And with all of those economic punishments where America did exert and put on Cuba, Cuba still survive and still thrive. Cuba end up have some of the best doctors and nurses in the world. So for all like people will say, oh, if Jamaica go join Brics, America go cut we off. So what? You don't want to be independent and stand up on your own 2 feet. You don't want to be in a infantile baby stage forever. We're still a creep, still a goo gaga. I depend on people for feed, you know. You don't want to walk and start run and start drive and start fly. That's supposed to be a natural progression for every country and every economy. I think we were lied to and miseducated about communist countries. When you're born and grow in the West, communist countries are painted as evil and wicked, and they don't mean nobody no good, and they might worst thing on earth. But somehow that doesn't seem to be true at all. Remember, Cuba donate and build 2 schools in Jamaica, you know. That is Jose Marte in St. Catherine and Garvey Maceo in Clarendon. And if you know history, the West and America has always been demonizing communist countries. China communist, Russia communist, Cuba communist. So how them are communist countries so kind to other countries? America will say democracy is the best thing. How these democratic countries like America, England, and Canada don't help black countries in the way that communist countries help black countries. Fidel Castro did go down to Africa and help liberate Africans from Western imperialism and colonialism. That's a little known fact, historical fact. We have to start fact check these countries who love preach democracy. What does democracy mean? Has America ever donated no money for build no school in Jamaica, even one basic school? When Cuba donated and built those 2 schools in Jamaica, Cuba no have it. Cuba struggle just like Jamaica, and I try figure it out just like Jamaica. So then give way out of nothing from the goodness of Fidel Castro heart. Rest in peace. Rest in power, my boss. And like America, we always have it. You see, Elon Musk dig up a bag of waste spending through USAID. How much billions on top of billions of dollars then squander through USAID if we push aquatic creature and transmission agenda in every country where they can push a waste billions. Now do not meaningful. Now help no countries we need it in no real way. Jamaica also got 1.5 million US for push that said aquatic transmission transformer Decepticon.
After using this little device, my father, who is over 70 years old,
agenda in Jamaica just the same through USAID. So that is how America choose for uselessly squander their money than for meaningfully help Jamaica. Because you giving us the 1.5 million US there for push aquatic creature agenda in Jamaica, cause you want to turn Jamaica in a one big giant aquarium. That's why I'm glad the Democrats them never win. That now help we, and that was under the Biden-Harris administration. And some people are say USAID is a CIA front that is used to push ideological subversions in other countries and in also America. 3 countries have agency in their loan decisions, while critics argue that China exploits developing nations. Many governments actively seek Chinese loans because they offer certain advantages over Western financing, less bureaucracy, and fewer conditions compared to loans loans from the IMF or World Bank, faster approval processes, and the ability to fund large-scale projects quickly. Developing nations often see China as a viable alternative because Western financial institutions have historically been slow or unwilling to fund high-risk projects. The reason why they're uninterested to fund high-risk projects are because they don't want to see your country progress and develop. They want to hold you down and keep you right where you're there. I saw the IMF and the World Bank go to work. Jamaica has not prospered or grew or benefited from all these IMF and World Bank loans where we are take from day one. Because the purpose of those loans is not to make you become independent, is to actually keep you dependent on them. And that Trump accused China of, which is a lie. A rumors Trump has spread on China when he said that. So anything where them accuse China of, or where the Western financial institutions are basically guilty of. When it comes to the World Bank and the IMF, no matter how much money you borrow from them, you can't take that the money there, build no road, build no highway, repair no road. You can't take your money, build no school or build no hospital. No key infrastructure where if you make your country grow and develop and push you forward. You can't use IMF money and World Bank to do nothing like that. Them want to tell you how to spend it, where to spend it, when to spend it, what to spend it on, who to spend it with. Them micromanage you and watch you like a hawk. Some serious financial oversight me I talk about, Remember, a Jamaica money, we have to pay back your loan, plus interest, high interest. And you dictate terms how me fi spend the money, when me fi do with the money, when me can and cannot spend it on. IMF and World Bank are hold on for the US and other Western powers also use economic influence. While the Trump administration accused China of economic coercion, the US and its allies have long used financial leverage to gain influence. IMF and World Bank loans often come with strict conditions. Example, structural adjustments, privatization, and austerity measures. The US has used economic sanctions, pressure countries like Iran, Venezuela, and North Korea into compliance with its geopolitical goals. Example, in the 1980s to 1990s, many Latin American and African countries suffered crippling debt crises under Western-backed IMF structural adjustment programs, which led to economic recessions and social unrest. This is why Jamaica need to join Brics and step away from America and the IMF and the World Bank and just say adios and just go our own way. Walk well left them. These people are diabolical. Don't ever expect a Bakra-looking person to actually care about Africans. You would be foolish to expect, say, oh, them all have your best interests at heart and them all look out for you. No, they are not. No, they won't. They never have and they never will. That's why I say Brics all the way. The bigger picture, geopolitical competition. While the Trump administration framed China's lending as a purely exploitative practice, the reality is that both the US and China use economic influence to advance their strategic interest. The criticism of China's BRI is part of a larger US-China rivalry, where Washington seeks to counter Beijing's growing global reach. Some countries benefit from playing both sides, negotiating deals with China while also securing financial aid from the US and its allies. The final takeaways. 1. Debt trap diplomacy is not as clear-cut as the Trump administration portrayed it. Many developing countries choose China loans because they offer alternatives to Western financial systems. 2. Chinese influence is strategic but not always coercive. While some projects raise concerns about debt dependency, China has also cancelled debt debts and restructured loans in ways that Western lenders often do not. 3. The US and Western institutions engage in their own forms of financial influence. Critics argue that Washington's attack on China's lending practices ignores the historical role of Western institutions in creating debt crises in the global South. 4. The debate is geopolitical as much as economic. The US critiques China's loans because it sees them as a challenge to Western-led financial institutions like the IMF, World Bank, and the global banking system. So what do you think? Is Jamaica playing a dangerous game by trying to balance both superpowers? Or is this just another chapter in the never-ending US-China rivalry? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into geopolitical power plays. Until next time, stay informed, stay in.
There you have it, my people. I hope you can support his channel by subscribing because he does good work. All in Foster, good evening. Real sweet. Well, go on. Get well soon. Get well soon. Now, I'm not so worried about a relationship with China because inevitably you just cannot avoid it. It's the world economic superpower. My bigger problem is our corrupt leaders. Leadership is a bigger problem for us than there is for the outside country like China. When it comes to US and Britain, it's a kind of different relationship where it's really controlling, as opposed to the China relationship where China will lend you money but actually allow you to run your country. It is not how the IMF or the World Bank operates. If the IMF and the World Bank is running your money, it is their policy that is dictated in your country. They dictate also the spending policy for your country. Hence, you see the long-term relationship we have with the IMF and the World Bank. We have not had that type of infrastructure development that since the cooperation with the Chinese we're having. The issue in all this goes back to leadership. Leadership. Is our leaders leading within their interests or within the interests of our country and our people? Most of the problem we're going to face it with corrupt leadership. It is why we need to hold our leaders more accountable. We need to know more about the relationship they're having with these different masters, whether it be China, Europe, or America. On the other hand, I don't think we should be gaslighted by the West not to have a relationship with China. The West themselves, at this point, cannot do without having a relationship with China. The American economy is indebted to China. China has won the technology race against America, regardless of what America wants to tell you. China has toppled America economy-wise. We don't know yet. Military-wise, I cannot say yet if China is above and beyond, but certainly they're marching up. It's inevitable. All of us are going to have to deal with China. Just like when America was the big boy in town, all of us have to deal with America. But I really think the relationship the world will have with China and Brics will be a different relationship we're having with the West, where the West is a more control narcissistic freak, where China wants a more family relationship. One of the problem is our leaders are too trained and entrenched rather in their Western corrupt mentality. Every country is going to take advantage. If China see corrupt leaders, China's are going to take the China is going to take the advantage. The West have always been taking advantage. And because our corrupt leaders allow them to take such advantage, then we have this perpetual cycle of keep us into the third world position. But for our economy to really move, we really need infrastructure development. The relationship we had with the West for 5 years, especially the post-colonial relationship, we have not benefited handsomely. Our economy really didn't get that support and that push. Of course, we get a lot of IMF loans, World Bank loans, and all sorts of different loans from the European Union, from Britain, and all of that over the years. But when we get those loans, those people tell us what to do with it, and we pay very high interest rate to them. Nothing is wrong with an alternative relationship. Nothing is wrong with an alternative relationship, especially if there's greater prospect seen as opposed to what it is now. Another thing is the US is a dying economy. Western economy is a dying economy. I don't think we should be twisted by the Americans to go down in that sinking ship that the Americans are going down on as an economy. I don't think we should follow the Americans to the bottom of the sea. Brics and China and is going to be the new way forward. Regardless America likes it or not, America has used its time and its ranting crusade of democracy to drop bombs and to sponsor all sorts of agenda globally. America has really missed the opportunity to sponsor real development. But because the West wants to be the Mother Teresa of the world, they will steal, they will bomb you to smithereen, steal your resources, and then return as Mother Teresa under the disguise of a low-level spy, the non-governmental organization. So it's a cycle of here, there, and everywhere and nowhere. And I think after such a long relationship, Dale Wright, is it right? Dale Wright? I think. After such a long relationship with the Americans and the Europeans, and we have not seen meaningful development, then what is wrong with trying something else? I don't think anything is wrong with trying something else. Thank you, Marcia. I really don't think we should follow the US over the edge of the cliff. Colleen Browning, how you do? I really don't think we should follow the US over the edge of the cliff. The World Bank and the IMF is really a demonic organization, just like the WHO, the World Trade Organization, and all of these things. President Trump waging a tariff war on anybody who he thinks he needs to throw up the wall who has a relationship with China. It's just not going to do any good for the American economy. Because Trump keep putting taxes on American importers who deal with various different countries will just not help. What that is going to do is shock the American system. So President Trump and his rant with a well-developed China, a very fast-growing India, a very fast-moving Brazil as well. South Africa just needs to get itself together and move out of the mentality of democracy, because democracy is not the be-all and end-all. Democracy creates more conflict than it really solves, to be honest with you. We can have other systems or design our system that does respect human rights, that is not this gun-ho democratic policy, because democracy is, as I said, democracy is tainted in blood. There's other systems that you can advance with that respect human rights. And the human rights argument as well, that the West advances, I never agree with the West talking about human rights. I mean, the people who move around the world dropping bombs at everybody and stealing from them and doing all sorts of ungodly things in the name of war or in the name of changing regime or dropping bombs on people to save them from a tyrannical leader. I really never get such horse manure that Western leaders would come up with. So I never listen to Western leaders or Western country when it comes to the argument of moral and democracy, because they are yet to show the world anything such as moral, the concept they preach of democracy, if they really mean it, respect it, follow it, or really, one could ask, understand what the hell they are telling us about. But I don't think we should follow them over the cliff. I think what we are to do is hold our corrupt leaders to account. So the relationship we have with China is one that really benefits us as a people and not the pocket of our leader, and in the end tilted to benefit China and not us. I think that's where we should put more focus on. And if Andre's been given a marching order by the small hand Cuban immigrant, Marco Rubio, if Andrew's been given a marching order, Ladybug, and Andrew's not communicating with us, the people, how do we know the risk of tug of war that Jamaica is in or might end up in with US and China, given the rant and rave that President Trump is on with his tariff stick at the moment? So I hope this information brings some different side of the coin to you, because as Donald Trump brand them, the Western medias are always fake news and propaganda. They're always going to write a story in a skewed way through the Western lens and from the Western propaganda perspective. There's always a red square war between the Western Democrats and the Eastern what they would call communists, because what they call communists is more sometimes social democracy, but they use the word communism to keep people fearful of you losing much when we have not really gained much under democracy, really, because we still not have land rights. Them tax upon everything. All when you own a house, when you own piece of land, you still have to pay tax every day. So democracy for me is a scam. And I don't think we should continue to perpetuate the scam of democracy if we're not benefiting from it. So make sure when you subscribe to the Patriotic Jamaican, so when he puts out a video, you have his side of the story from the research that he has done. Thank you all very much for being here tonight. TikTok, thank you very much for your support. This page is growing. When it grows some more, we will use this page as our panel discussion, free speech page, but we're waiting until it gathers a bit more audience. Omar Boswell, good evening. Good evening. So when this TikTok page grows some more, we'll start having some conversation on it where you, the people, can get the chance to speak, because I waddle on for quite some time of the day, Ladybug. But thank you all for being here tonight. Kathy, Colleen, and everyone, Marcia, thank you all for being here on the Global Television Group tonight. It is Friday. If anything breaking, tomorrow we will run out and see what's going on. But if not, we will try to have our weekend break. Thank you very much for your support. Continue to support by subscribing and following whatever platform you are watching from. Thank you all very much. Have an enjoyable weekend. And don't forget to always keep positive. Once again, to Sharon Bernard, keep up, keep strong, and real sweet. Get well soon. Thank you all very much, everyone. Good night from Global TV, and have yourself an enjoyable weekend.
If you don't like missing out on the latest shows but still enjoy classic hits, then Global TV Group 358 is your perfect match. Global TV Group 358 isn't just another channel, it's your ultimate TV experience. From breaking news to binge-worthy dramas and timeless classics, we've got it all. Our unique blend of original content and global favorites means there's something for everyone. And guess what? With GTVG's seamless streaming, you can watch anywhere, anytime. Plus, our interactive features let you be part of the action. So, whether you're a seasoned binge watcher or a casual viewer, Global TV Group 358 is here to keep you entertained day and night. Don't just watch TV, experience it with Global TV Group 358. Subscribe now and never miss a moment.